What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Commentary for you, Ryan Moody, Jimmy Smith, our MMA show, UFC Fight Night, Lee versus Oliveira. We also have, in the middle of this show, Jimmy is going to read a code for BKFC11, which is going to have some big names, Sam Shoemaker, Josh Neer. If you're an MMA fan, you probably know Dave Rickles as well. Want to thank our longtime sponsored Fight TV for providing us the show, you the show for free. We'll put a link down in the description how to access it. I believe they're also going to do live scoring, which we have another show, just full of shows and content and free stuff here. We have another show coming up talking about the live scoring. But tonight, we're going to go through a breakdown of this weekend's card. We are going to start. This is actually also, before we get into that, Jimmy, I want your take on this as well. I thought we went through kind of a low, right, where we were getting some cards that just weren't the greatest. But now it seems like we're full throttle into some really, really good cards back to back to back.
Generally, that's kind of how it works. Usually January, February is a little slow, and then they start picking up in the spring. There aren't really seasons to MMA, but they do tend to pick it up in the spring and kind of peak in summer, and then there's a little bit of a down there, and then, ramping up in the fall again. So, yeah, man, looks like we're getting ready for that.
First fight, lightweight fight, Francisco Trinaldo versus John Makdessi. Makdessi is undefeated since 2017. And he could easily tie his win count from each of the last 3 years with a win here. Like, I don't know what is going on with this guy's personal life, but tons of power. Age doesn't, really affect power. We know all that much. Does well with hooks, has some good leg kicks, keeps guys honest, throws a lot of stuff in front of him, good pressure, moves forward. Trinaldo, great submission game, mixes shots up well. It's kind of like a pick'em fight for me. But, and I never do this, the one thing that just set me over the edge, since 2017, Trinaldo has won and then lost, won and then lost. I'm going to go with the trend here and think that it's going to carry me through.
Well, the issue here, as you pointed out, is that Makdessi hasn't fought more than once in a calendar year since 2016. All right?
He's undefeated, Jimmy. He's undefeated.
That's one way to look at it. When you fought three times since the end of 2016,
you got to look at positive.
I guess
you got to look at
that's
positive.
The positive. The negative is he hasn't been particularly busy. Francisco Trinaldo. The interesting thing about him is just he's stocky, he's strong, he's a good bull. He's great when he comes forward. He's great when he's aggressive. He's an older fighter, but he still has a lot of power. And I saw what he did to Evan Dunham in Brazil. I was there for that fight. Dude has real power when he gets you sitting in one place. The problem is he's not great at necessarily cutting off the octagon, and he tries to press forward, but he doesn't have great footwork. I think the power of Makdessi might be a little too much on this one. And I don't really care about the undefeated part because he hasn't been particularly busy. But I think it's going to be a workmanlike fight. Also, that last time he lost is the last time that a fight of his hasn't gone the distance. I think it's going to be a hard-hitting fight. I'm going to give Makdessi the slight edge in versatility. And, Trinaldo's got some years and some wear on him. And eventually that starts catching up with you. I think it starts catching up with him now. I got to go with Makdessi on this one.
Well, we both did, because I think he's going to lose. He beat Bobby Green. Now he's going to lose. He has lost to top-level guys, if you exclude James Vick from in there. Has a loss to Kevin Lee back, which we're going to talk about in the main event. But interesting, I felt the same way. A fight every year for the past 3 years, you're going back and looking at fights, and you're like, how much, but the power can still be there. Moving up the card, really an exciting fight as well. And at light heavyweight, there's a little bit of pull in this one, thus it's on the main card. You have Johnny Walker and Nikita Krylov. Listen, Johnny Walker just exited the John Jones Invitational with a devastating loss to Corey Anderson, where we talked about this in the post-fight show. He really seemed to struggle with pressure, counter-fighting, moving backwards. He's known for unconventional angles, flying knees, spinning back fists and kicks. Krylov, though, and he's just, respectable with takedowns, good body kicks, but this is all about range and patience to me. If Krylov wants to rush in, then he's probably going to get met with one of those brutal Johnny Walker knees. But I just can't help but think we saw the blueprint in Walker getting exposed in that last fight, and Krylov is going to use that pressure to overwhelm and win this fight.
This is a tough one for me, simply because I thought Krylov should have beaten Glover Teixeira. Not that I think he won that fight. I thought he lost. I thought he had the tools. I thought the timing was right. Glover Teixeira, a big name, but has faded, over the past couple of years, as all fighters do. And I thought that was really Krylov. That was kind of I don't want to say a setup for Krylov, but that was his opportunity to show us what he had, and he was really disappointing. The thing about Johnny Walker is I don't think we learned anything new necessarily about him in the Corey Anderson fight. He'd always been all over the place. He'd always been unorthodox. He'd always been easy to hit. And I don't mean that he had taken a lot of damage in previous fights. I mean, his head's kind of all over the place. He doesn't have, hands up, chin down, conservative defense, good at reading shots. He just moves so funky, and he's so big, and he's so powerful, and he's so unorthodox that he kind of makes fighters spectators. And that's always a bad thing. Someone like MVP in Bellator, he makes the other guy a spectator. They end up looking at him, kind of wondering what's going on, then they get knocked out. That's been a lot of Johnny Walker's ability, is he's so funky and awkward, you're trying to figure him out, and by the time you do, you're out. Because he has incredibly powerful kicks, punches, everything he throws has real power behind it. Now, it caught up with him against Corey Anderson. If Krylov had overcome in his last fight, if he had won what I thought was not necessarily a showcase, but once again, an opportunity for him to really shine, he didn't do that against Glover Teixeira. So both guys coming off losses. I got to go with the more physical specimen in Johnny Walker. I don't think he's a little bit younger. I think he overcomes his last loss a little better than Krylov did. I don't think Krylov showed us everything he had. I didn't think he fought a smart fight. He's going to need that against Johnny Walker. I don't think he does it. I think Johnny Walker in this one, he rebounds and comes back.
Well, we don't disagree often, but we're starting to find ways to do so.
Moving up. We can be controversial.
The worst thing is I don't even remember who picks who when we go back and get them right or wrong. So I don't even know why it matters in the show anyway.
Sometimes I wonder about that myself.
We don't check ourselves. And although we get checked an awful lot of the comment section, no one goes back and tells us why. Well, they tell us why we were wrong. They just don't tell us who we got wrong. So moving up, light heavyweight. Renato Moicano versus, this is actually one of the better nicknames in the Bosnian Bomber. So basically with him, you've got a great striker, underrated clinch, knees, mixes overhand punches, leg kicks. Moicano comes in, kind of that veteran savvy. I had to double check, but you know that he doesn't have a win by knockout? He's got a really good jab that he works well behind, a nice left hook, uppercut, high kicks, blends in his takedowns.
Yeah, versatile, but not a power guy. Has never been his thing. Yeah.
It's just weird. All those fights, and he's never had one. Even with that, though, I think this is going to be Moicano's fight. I think he's just a more veteran player. I think he's got a lot more experience against bigger names. And I really think all around he's got a larger tool set as well.
I agree. And also very rangy. 5'11", that's tall for this weight class. Good reach. He uses it well. Where he stands very, very tall. He extends his punches very well. Doesn't leave a lot of openings when he throws. It's hard to find the entry on this guy. And remember, he didn't knock out Cub Swanson, but he stunned him before he choked him out. The fight against Calvin Kattar, who's a very versatile striker, Carnero showed a bit more. And this is one of those things, by the way, someone tried to make fun of me one time because I called him Renato Carnero, and they're like, "Oh, you mean Moicano?" And I was like, that's a nickname, right? You know that his real name's Carnero. Like, oh, I'm sorry. It's like, the Brazilian thing where they use the nickname as their name, but his real name's Carnero. So anyway, I think that's just a difficult puzzle to figure out unless you're really elite. And when you look at his losses, Jose Aldo, Korean Zombie, Brian Ortega, those are elite guys. Those are the guys right now in the title mix. Those are the guys right now. Of course, Jose Aldo fighting for a title, and Brian Ortega at 145, and the Korean Zombie taking one another on, and winner's probably the number one contender. Those are elite guys. And I just don't see Hadzovic as elite right now. Good, serviceable fighter. He might test Moicano a bit, but I got to go with Moicano in the end.
I'm really excited about this co-main event. Damian Maia, Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns has been off so many people's radar. I got to see him grapple a couple years ago against Jake Shields. This guy's world class. He also has the power that you don't traditionally see with a grappler. And he gets respect for that by using some really nice feints with his hooks to set up takedowns. And he has great takedowns. He explodes through his takedowns. Fundamental with his underhooks. Of course, Damian Maia, man, what can you say? This guy's blue chip, gold standard, whatever you want to call it. I mean, this guy quietly bounced back. I know he had some high-level losses, but even when I looked, I didn't realize that he'd bounced back 3 wins in a row. I only look at the losses and maybe some kind of the laborious fights. And while he might offer an overhand punch every once in a while, we know the ground game is where he looks to go, takedowns, trips, and once he gets down there, he basically just converts himself into a backpack. The question to me is, can Gilbert Burns get to the next level? Can he beat the elite grappler? I think he does. It's going to be a huge step, but to be honest, I really see him putting it through. And actually, I see him, one of those visions, Jimmy, I actually see him getting a ground and pound win in this one. I think he's going to overwhelm Damian Maia, be better on the ground than Damian expects, and have the power to finish this fight and make a statement in this division.
I want to say something that I don't know how many fans really understand it. This dude in Gilbert Burns is a world champion in jiu-jitsu. You know who he beat in the worlds in 2011?
I bet you're going to tell me.
Kron Gracie. And didn't just beat him. He smoked him. Smoked him. It was a beatdown. And Kron had beaten him before. That's what I love about it. Kron, I think, had beaten him by armbar before. But in the worlds, he just had his number, man. Was just all over him. Not anybody can do that. That takes real talent and real skill. Damian Maia has maybe the best jiu-jitsu in the history of this division in the UFC. He's top 2 or 3 all time in the UFC. Jacare, Roger Gracie, Damian Maia. That would be fine. Gilbert Burns is younger. I think he has a few more tools to use. Bit more explosive. The key here, the only way Damian Maia wins, I really believe this, he's going to have trouble submitting Gilbert unless Gilbert does something really stupid. And I think that goes the other way around as well. People talk about the jiu-jitsu battle here. Either guy, it's almost impossible to submit Damian Maia. It's almost impossible to submit Gilbert Burns. You'd have to really hurt him. They'd have to be really rocked, and then they turn their back and they give up a rear naked or a guillotine. That's about it. I don't see either guy submitting the other. Damian Maia's best path to victory. Take him down, ground and pound, stay on him, work that conservative game plan. I don't think he passes guard and submits Gilbert Burns, but he might be able to kind of put the pressure on him and grind out a win. I don't see that happening against Burns. His striking is too good. His scrambles are too good. He's too good at relieving pressure. Those moments where just about every other fighter, and you've seen it before in jiu-jitsu and MMA, where a guy realizes, oh man, I'm in here with a shark, right? I thought I had a good ground game, and I see now what a good ground game really is. Gilbert Burns isn't going to have that moment against Damian Maia. Damian Maia seems to enforce that on almost everybody that he goes to the ground with. I have good jiu-jitsu. And then you roll with Damian Maia and you go, no, I don't, right? And you almost see it in their eyes like, this guy just has pressure I've never felt before. Gilbert Burns isn't going to have that moment. Now, we can sit here and argue all day about who's better in jiu-jitsu right now, okay? But the point is, the levels aren't far and away as different as they would be with anybody else. Gilbert Burns isn't going to have that moment. Damian Maia isn't going to have that moment. So when people talk about the jiu-jitsu in this fight, I don't think we'll see a whole lot. I really don't. I mean, Damian Maia's game is really basic. I love it. I have a basic game myself. But I think Gilbert Burns is going to be able to at least keep him from passing. We're not going to see these crazy, wacky transitions, and we're just not going to see that. I really don't think we'll see that. I think it's going to be Damian Maia trying to get the takedown, Gilbert Burns angling and throwing punches. I think that's going to be the story of this fight.
All right, Jimmy, before we get to the main event, I'm going to go ahead and let you read the code from Fight TV. All you guys have to do, click the link down in the description, enter the code in the box. It's very simple. You will get the pay-per-view this weekend for free, courtesy of us and Fight TV. And as always, we appreciate everything they've done for our podcast. Whether you're watching this on YouTube, listening to it on Podbean, they have been with us pretty much from the start, and we cannot thank them enough for what they do for us and you.
You're ready for the code. It is lowercase f, the number 7, lowercase w, uppercase X, and these last 4 are all lowercase. A as in apple, J as in Jimmy, P as in podcast, D as in duck. So once again, lowercase f, 7, lowercase w, uppercase X, lowercase a, lowercase j, lowercase p, lowercase d.
Did you really just put your name in podcast phonetically into that?
I just did that. I'm okay with it too. Doesn't bug me at all.
I mean, that's special, but not as special as the last time we did this. And you may not realize this. I wish I knew the person's name. He literally typed out the code almost instantly. I don't even know how I got it that fast. Typed out the code in YouTube and said, hey, I've already bought the pay-per-view, but for the next person that sees this, here it is for free. That's a type of person that I'm not that person, but he was.
He's a better person than either one of us, for sure.
I was really taken back about his kind gesture, almost as taken back as I was with you phonetically using your name and then the type of the show, but whatever. We're done with that now. Moving on to the main event. Kevin Lee, Charles Oliveira. Oliveira, 6 in a row. Some of these guys have sneaky records when you start to go back and look at their fight catalog and you're like, win. This guy is an excellent striker. These guys are both, let me just say, a step down. I personally think a step down from elite, but this is a really good fight. It's going to be a tough fight for me to call. As far as Oliveira, though, straights and knees, excellent ground game. Really hunts chokes, maybe some of the best passes you'll see in the division. Really good with his transition. His clinch game, I was watching it. I don't see a lot of people talking about it, but maybe it's because he's so good at other things. He has a really good clinch as well. Kevin Lee is coming off an unforgettable knockout. I mean, really, a knockout we both set the TV down for in Gregor Gillespie, who really seemed destined for a title shot before he got to that point. Prior to that, though, we've kind of went back and forth with Kevin Lee. All right. He's lost 3 of his last 4. He's went through some weight changes. Honestly, I think he needed to move to TriStar to, I don't know if he needed to reinvigorate his career, if he needed, fresh space. He just seems to be outside of fighting a very emotional guy. And he's a great wrestler, solid takedowns. He's got his own submission. He fights well behind his straights and his uppercuts. He provides a lot of looks. But, man, both guys are so similar. It's really hard for me to even know, since we just talked about it. It's hard for me to know if this one, I was trying to make the determination if it was going to go to the ground or stay standing. But I just think there's too much change and too much inconsistency with Kevin Lee for me to see him getting past a guy like Charles Oliveira. So I'm going to ultimately go with Charles Oliveira to win this, but I don't think it's going to be a finish. I think it'll be a very good full 5-round fight. I just really would like to know if it's going to be on the ground or standing up.
Man, this is a tough one for me to pick, to be honest. I think style-wise, I'd go with Kevin Lee. I think in terms of momentum and intangibles, I would go with Charles Oliveira. And let me explain that. Kevin Lee's a guy, when I was calling fights with the UFC, when people talked about Khabib and, God, who can beat Khabib? And he was on that peripheral of, God, Kevin Lee would be a tough matchup for him. Big for the weight class, great wrestler, excellent striker, confident. And then he would kind of as you mentioned, these up and down performances that kind of kept him out of that conversation when stylistically, I think he was a tough matchup. Charles Oliveira is one of those guys early on in his career, kind of had these just losses that were almost seemed self-inflicted, where something would go wrong for some reason, or he would suddenly lose mental focus. If you look at the Paul Felder fight, he was owning Paul Felder and then took an elbow and just completely fell apart. Gets submitted by Ricardo Lamas, Anthony Pettis. I think his ground game is better than both of those guys, right? So it's just weird. Same thing early in his career against Jim Miller. He got knee barred, and I was like, God, Oliveira just has a better ground game than we're seeing. It seems like he almost realized how talented he was. Since the Clay Guida fight, he's won 6 in a row. The guy has real talent. But normally, someone like Kevin Lee, with Kevin Lee's wrestling, he throws good straight punches. He's powerful. He can keep a guy like Charles Oliveira at a distance. And not let his jiu-jitsu become a factor. He could do that. I just get the feeling Oliveira will be able to mix it up, get in good position, and we'll see a mental mistake from Kevin Lee. He had fights he was supposed to win, in my opinion, a la Quinta, that would have set him up as one of the elite, and he's kind of failed those tests. Now, does he have elite skill and talent? For sure. And maybe TriStar really put him back on the right track. But right now I'm going through momentum of Charles Oliveira, but it's not an easy choice for me because I really like Kevin Lee. But I'm going with Oliveira.
It's interesting that you put it that way, because to me, when I look at Kevin Lee, I remember, one of our earlier shows, as we actually approach a year anniversary, Jimmy, oh, how sweet.
It's adorable.
When he went to fight RDA, I remember picking against RDA because I, just assumed that Kevin Lee had a lot of things going for him. I'd picked against Kevin Lee in the past. I thought the win over Edson Barbosa was a relatively big deal. Until then, you only really look at losses to elite guys like Tony Ferguson. And as you said, those disappointments that you have, whether you want to bundle Ally Quinn into that or not, man, they kind of stick with me. And I actually went against him for Gregor Gillespie. I thought Gregor was going to have his way in that fight. So now I'm almost torn because, when I go with him, I get burnt. When I don't go with him, I get burnt.
It's always the way it works, isn't it?
Right. So either one, I just blessed him with a win, or number two, I'm going to be happy. To me, though, he is a talented fighter. I think part of the issue is he's still relatively young. And it just concerns me, all this chaos outside of what must be going on in fighting. It's not normal for a guy to change weights so many times trying to just stay on a winning track or feel like they can chase a title. It's not normal for a guy to change gyms like this. So whatever's going on, I hope he can get the ship righted and put himself back into contention. He's talented for sure. He has all the tools. It's just, for some reason, the puzzle pieces aren't fitting together right. And honestly, I think the last type of guy you want to go into a fight against with puzzle pieces not fitting right is a guy like Charles Oliveira in Brazil, mind you. That's just not going to end well for you.
Yeah, but both these guys have shown tendencies to make bad decisions in big fights, or not, in the case of the Quinta fight, not mentally be all the way there. And I know Kevin Lee's had trouble with the cut and things like that. It could be a physical thing. But what makes this fight interesting is either guy could kind of make a bad decision or end up in a bad spot and bungle the fight away, right? These are guys who one of the things that makes them so exciting is kind of their inconsistency. We're never knowing right now, Oliveira's on a streak, but he's had some bizarre performances in the past. Kevin Lee getting back on track, but once again, has had some tough fights in the past. So, and all to A-list guys. That's the thing with Kevin Lee. They've all been top shelf. Now, it's all been good guys that have beaten Oliveira, but you know what I mean? For Kevin Lee in the last couple of years, it's been the best of the best that have beaten him. So that's the interesting X factor here is, well, they've been known to make mistakes before. Could it bite them again? Certainly possible.
Well, with that said, we appreciate you guys checking this. We have a ton of content coming up, and obviously we're going to recap the show, but apart from that, next week, we've got Tyron Woodley, Leon Edwards, with special guest referee Jorge Masvidal, Jimmy. We got a big fight next week, too. As I was telling you about, these cards are starting to get more and more stacked. So we appreciate you guys checking this out, and we will be back very shortly with more content.